I just want an overview of, like, what are the titles of these? God, why is there just so much bullshit? Okay, here we go. The 12 Jungjin archetypes. I'll link this if anyone wants to check it out, because this sounds important. So I kind of tuned out most of the Jung stuff that wasn't on the test because I wanted to take mythology, not Jungs. Yeah, that makes sense, Samar. I hate it when, like, I took psychology, but it wasn't actually psychology, it was the history of psychology. And I was like, why would you call it psychology if it's the history of psychology? So all we did was literally talk about Freud the whole time, and I was like, this is fucking bullshit. J is a Y. Jungian? I fucking hate language like... No, a J is a J! Try pronouncing it Jungian. Freud was a freak. True, blessed. German J. Language is so difficult, that's why I made Freud like to get freaky. I believe it! Okay, the innocent. Represents purity and optimism, desiring to be happy and free. Strategy involves doing things right and embracing faith and optimism. So, naivety. He's post-Freudian, but not far post. I see. The orphan desires connection and belonging, fearing being left out or standing out. Strategy involves developing ordinary virtues, being down to earth and empathizing with others. Swift's psychiatrist. The hero seeks to prove worth through courageous acts, fearing weakness and vulnerability. Strategy is to be strong and competent, although may struggle with arrogance. Caregiver. Motivated by a desire to protect and care for others, fearing selfishness and ingratitude. Strategy involves doing things for others, though may fall into martyrdom and exploitation. Okay, this is probably me. I'm probably a mix of a couple of these. The explorer craves freedom and authenticity, fearing getting trapped or inner emptiness. Strategy includes journeying, seeking new experiences, and maintaining autonomy. Treated as absolutely as credible as any other psychiatry from the era, but plenty of things are both bunk and useful. Yeah, you got to think about it in the way of all rules have exceptions and there are reasons for it, but you can use it as a guideline to build off of in order to create an understanding, right? And that's where it's like you take like 3 or 4 of these and you mold them together to create an actual character. No, these aren't even rules. Social sciences use models, not laws. I just mean like categorically, right? Like no one person is one of these, but I definitely resonate when I see one that's me. Like, oh, that's definitely me. I'm not explorative or anything, but I'm definitely motivating. Like, motivated to protect and care for others. And, like, freedom and authenticity, but hate going out of my way to do stuff. Lover seeks intimacy and connection, fearing loneliness or rejection. Strategy has become more attractive physically and emotionally, but may lose identity. What I'm saying is social sciences are not as reliable as hard sciences. Oh, I know. Social sciences are a understanding of a subset group, right? Because you can't... You just take a general behavior of people and create an archetype around that behavior. That's why it's like no one person is one of these. People are probably 8 or 9, maybe even all of these put together with a little piece of each of them from somewhere, right? Because these are just so narrow in their scope. No human is that narrow in their reality unless they're just like a bland, boring, dumb person that has like no interests, no hobbies, and just like basically is a fucking NPC. Your Walmart NPC. Creator. Definitely have the creator in me. Strives to create enduring value, fearing mediocrity. True, strategy is developing artistic control and skill despite struggles with perfectionism. Exactly. Jester. I'm also Jester. 100% Jester. Embraces joy and honor, fearing humor, fearing boredom, or boring others. Strategy includes playing, making jokes, and being funny, though may struggle with frivolity. I think they are tendencies rather than every time, everywhere, everyone. Yeah, exactly, Blessed. But it's like, it can be distilled down to a single piece of characteristic that's like, oh, hey, this falls under this category, right? And then you can structure that in a way that's understandable. So, like, this is probably something you should have like personality tests in school where you say what resonates with you the most, and then take a test every year and see how your personality resonates with that, right? Because it's all about your self-image and what you think about and what you focus on, right? How much of this percentage are you, right? Like, for instance, some people would say, oh, comedians are jesters. But a lot of times, the reason why they're great comedians is because they understand what it's like to not be happy and not feel satisfied. So, understanding that state and then moving that state to laughter is, like, some of the greatest comedians of all time. And it's like just the basic understanding. Whereas a lot of people are like, oh, you have to understand how to laugh. It's like, first you should understand why people want to laugh and why people don't want to laugh. And then abuse that. Use the foundation of the reaction as your way. Robin Williams was miserable. Exactly. He hated, as far as like the public knows, he hated himself for a significant amount of his life. And he was just absolutely miserable and unhappy. And he understood what it took to put on a face. Raised by single mom, but spent most of his time in front of the TV. Yeah, completely neglected, never had the true connections that someone would ever really have. So his strive was always to feel that, quiet when not performing. Yeah, you'd be like he was a completely different person. And you could say, oh, well that was no. Him performing was him putting on a fucking act. That's how good of an actor he was. And that's what the great actors generally are, is because most of their life, they've been acting. That's why they're so good at it. I'm taking off all my masks. Blessed, I wish I could, but if I took off all of my masks, my head would fall off. I usually think of these more like the MBTI or the one with the 4 quadrants or whatever. They're putting people in boxes to help them understand each other better. Oh, like the known self, unknown self, others known, others unknown. Yeah, we did a video on that. Yeah, we did a video on that. All the bullshit I performed to be like. Remember, like I said, Blessed, if I don't give you an example, I'm bullshitting. If I don't immediately give you an example, like if you ask a question and I give you an answer and then I don't give an example, I'm bullshitting. So always ask for an example, and if I can't give you an example, fucking call me out because I'm bullshitting. It's just vibes. The Sage. Driven by a quest for truth, fearing being misled or ignorant. Which might be one reason it's acknowledged to be garbage. It's true, but I use every tool available to me, right? Knowing what tools are bad and what tools not to use is also a very important thing. Like, that's why a lot of some of the advice that we go through is like, oh, don't listen to this advice, or these are the caveats as to why you wouldn't use this advice, right? It's like, you have to find it. There's so much advice and so much contradiction in that advice because it's all based on a framework. And where are you positioned in that framework, and what perspective do you have? Which direction are you facing? What angle are you at? You take all of that nuance and you fold it together, and that can give you a direction to look for what you need to like advance, right? I don't know if there is still a fully unmasked me still exists. Huh, Samar? Well, you can be fully unmasked to yourself, Samar. But the whole point is that you put on different masks for different people, but those masks are part of. I guess a real way to say it, guys. I guess this is a better representation. Hold on, let's see if we can get a better representation of this. So if we have, let's go shapes. We want a circle, so we'll take a circle. So this is like the entire you, right? These are the different masks. They're just different pieces of you that show only a limited amount of one thing, and you put them on for different people. Does that make sense? Effective behavioral training alters self-image irretrievably. Yep. But it's like for each person, you'll show only a little bit of yourself, right? So it's not even that you're technically putting on a mask. And, you know, some people you're like this. Probably some people you're like this, right? So there are probably some people you put on an entire mask for. But most of it, you're just hiding bits of your personality because that would clash with other people. And that's why to some people you can be a completely different person. So the masks are just smaller representations of the entire whole, filled in by that overarching topic that's been chosen by that mask. Also, you're using a different definition of masks than the neurodivergent community. Neurodivergence means being forced to mask almost consistently. I am less mask-wearing and more expressing a part of myself here because I don't have another person like you. True, Blessed. That's my biggest problem, is I don't have other people like you guys. Like, I can never fully unmask because the things that I say in public, people probably would want to beat me up for. You know? I've had people almost attack me over my UBI propositions because I don't think they fucking understand what UBI is supposed to be. They're like, doctors can't make the same amount of money! And I'm like, you're fucking retarded. It just means that everyone's provided a basic thing. Doesn't mean people can't work. All we do is say, what's the lowest? Okay, the lowest you can be in society is have a 1-by-1 room with 1 bowl of rice a day. That's the lowest you can possibly be in society. There isn't anything lower than that because you can't be homeless. Find it hard to respect idiots. I could definitely see that, Blessed. 100%. People that have no logical understanding, and when you they try to explain their logic, and it's like, oh, it's a feeling. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Stop, you know, stop and take a second to realize why you think what you think. Needs beans, too. No, beans cost money. Rice is way cheaper than beans. Beans are expensive compared to rice. You know. Beans are like if you don't want berry, I don't know what berry is. Behavioral training. It's hard to respect idiots, but at least I can think of it this way, Blessed. They don't have to deal with the existential crisis of being intelligent and seeing how retarded everyone else is and being like, why are people so fucking dumb? And you have all the means in the world to educate yourself. If you only eat white rice, you get a horrible disease from malnutrition. You do become the mask. It takes a lot of people to peel them off like an onion. Yep. This is why people oppose your UBI proposal. You want to do serious harm to people poorer than you. But this is the question, Angstace. There are people that don't have any food. So, what you're saying is we should let the lowest of society be homeless and unfed versus live in a box and have 1 thing of rice a day. So all I'm advocating for, it is called berry, and it's like scurvy and rickets. Yes, Samar, but at least you're alive. Whereas homeless people, right? So what's worse? Not having any food. Night Sir Talk took a little break. What did I miss whilst I was gone? Rick, welcome. How's it going, bro? Not too much, good sir. We're in the middle of Callie's story, but we've gotten really sidetracked. Like 4 times over, but that's okay. It happens. Homeless people get better food than that. But what I'm saying, Samar, is they would still get that because people would still feel bad for them, right? But there would be government provided a single meal of rice. So all I'm advocating for is upping one tiny notch on society and going from no home, no food to 1 bowl of rice, 1 box. Also, that's not true at all. In this country, the current lowest level of social services support is better than 1-by-1 cell with only rice. But what I'm saying is the people that can't get that service. Does that make sense? Like, the only thing I'm advocating for is the people that are below not having a 1-by-1 box and a bowl of rice. We're giving them a 1-by-1 box and a bowl of rice. And there's no... If they can't buy food, we have food stamps. But there are people that, like, for instance, if you're completely illiterate and you're like a homeless person living on the street, that's like, because those people don't actually exist outside your imagination. You know what would be more sidetracked if you got some whip scenes of Jake, Lumina, and Makoto Kenshi. Don't know yet, to be honest, but he is a femboy slime who's passionate about Jake, you know, infatuated, admiring. There are places that fill out the forms for you. And Makoto Zenshin is someone we meet in Jake's whole journey. Okay, so what you guys are saying... So this is what I'm getting from the conversation. Find supplementary nutrition assistance programs. I'm not advocating for removing any of the... What's frustrating is not that everyone qualifies for food stamps despite needing it due to today's pricings. See, Sean, that's what I'm saying. Is like... What I don't understand is what you guys are saying, what Samar and Angsthace, what you guys are saying is there's not a single person in the US or Canada or Europe that is... tomorrow will die of starvation on the street. And I just don't think I believe that. I think there are at least 3 people that will probably die of starvation on the street tomorrow that have no means of getting any kind of government support. And all I'm saying is those people are the people that are for this. Yes, the problem is that with UBI, people want to replace the welfare system work with UBI. But that's not what I'm advocating for. I'm advocating for expanding the current system and adding a new lowest notch. That you don't need any paperwork, you don't need anything. You show up at this place, you get one meter bed, 1 bowl of rice. No matter who you are. Any person can do it. These people will access UBI. Because there'll be buildings built, Angsthace, and they'll be like 80-story buildings that are, you know, a normal office building, but they're like 1,000 1-by-1 meter boxes. Basically a fucking prison. And if you need to, you can walk in there, get a bowl of rice, and a place to sleep. That is all it is. It's just and there's no security, there's no nothing. It's just simply an empty building that you can walk into, get dispensed a bowl of rice, and that's it. Oh, yes, Exactly. They're literally like prisons, but they are there to facilitate the... So if someone says, oh, I have nowhere to... Like, for instance, let's say some emergency happens, like me, for instance, and I have a seizure, and let's say, you know, I'm the only one left. I'm like 75. I'm the only one left, and I have a seizure, and I lose everything. I'm now on the street at 75, basically gonna die, but I could go to this place and live in this place and get a bowl of rice. No paperwork, no nothing. I walk in, dispenses me a bowl of rice, I go to my cage, I sit down, I don't have to be in the weather anymore. More than 3 people tomorrow would rather die than lose their freedom. Food less than 75 cents. Wrong. Cans are 75-cent pound if you recycle them. Food costs less than a big bag of crushed cans. Yeah, those are called emergency shelters. But they wouldn't be emergency shelters. They would just be... like... I don't know. But you see where I'm going? Where when I talk about this, people are like, "What are you?" They like freak out, and I'm like, "No. Place for homeless people to sleep and get 1 meal. Then you can go out and try to get a job. It's an address for people to use for apply for work, showers, and personal care supplies." Exactly, Sean. What exactly do you think you were describing, if not an emergency? Because emergency shelters are overlooked. I'm talking about something that does not have staff. It is not cleaned. It is not done anything with. It is simply there and abandoned to facilitate anyone's need. I feel neither of you have used an emergency shelter. It has no means for upward economic movement. Nah, I knew the canners when I worked at the scrapyard. Neither of who. I mean, I think it's a fascinating conversation, and oh, so you want universal rape for the poor? Well, I'm like, what happens while they're on the street? It's just one of those things where it's like, how is it safer for them on the street? That's my argument. And emergency shelters only allow for a short time. You can't be there consistently. Exactly, Sean. This would be, you could literally live there. They form a community and protect each other. Exactly, Samar. See, what I don't understand is like, most people's, oh, it'll be bad, so we shouldn't do it. But I'm like, it's better. You think Samar, you think they're actually safer on the street? On the street, they have escape routes. That's why they're not in emergency shelters. A community going nowhere. All I'm saying is, in my mind, I think it's better than being on the street. But it wouldn't be mandatory. If they think they're safer on the street, angst, they don't have to go to these places. All I'm saying is there should be a place. Because people say emergency shelters, but emergency shelters are not a long-term solution. I'm talking about a long-term solution. Yes, but it's because it costs money to maintain it. Once you consider that their home feels safer there. Exactly, Samar, but one of the ones where I'm homeless, I could choose to go to an abandoned prison and stay there while attempting to get a job. I'd go there. I mean, there you go. It's not just safety, it's freedom to drink, drug, and be lazy. All I'm saying is, and yeah, emergency shelters do have permanency planning. Please don't speak of people I consider friends like that. I mean, what I don't understand is, like, I'm just advocating for what I think is a better life for people. If they don't... And I'm not saying forcing anyone to do it. Most of them aren't on drugs or drinking. They work hard. Well, guys, I'm from Vancouver, so, like, I totally understand, like, the thing. All I'm saying is if they had a place to go, so they didn't have to. Okay, think about this, guys. I think actually this is a great example. Okay, think about this. Why are there like homeless like camps? Okay, I think I've found a root of logic for this, guys. The ones who use it to cope with the things that put them there. Your idea of a better life is markedly worse than what's there now and guarantees eventually fatal illness because they have a community. Also, if you know people who don't fit the mold I'm talking about, then that doesn't apply to them. Exactly, Blessed. So what I'm saying is, you see a homeless camp? Turn that into a building. It's so frustrating that once homeless and jobless, you can't find a job. You need a home to get a job, but you get a job, you need a home. Yeah. So let's find a homeless camp, build a building there. Does that make sense? Because now it's the government providing infrastructure. I was also homeless and in a hotel for 2 months. I empathize. The problem we have here is that you set the minimum bar too low. The village people might have informed you of one of the systems available to help people get back on their feet. I'm like, if they're building tent cities, this is my argument. If people are building tent cities, why not make an actual building for them? That's my basic argument. At the end of the day, that's my basic argument. How do we get rid of homeless cities? Well, we make houses where those homeless towns are. Because people don't give a shit. That isn't what we object to. Your description is the issue. Because they have reasons to avoid the existing shelters. Yes, because the existing shelters are overseen, and they have like, capitalism is what have you done for me? I guess I just don't see it from your guys' perspective, where living in a tent city is better than having an actual building. Because you just can't have homeless people building fucking tent cities in the middle of cities. I don't know the reasons, but I watch them sit around all day yapping. See, I'm just bad at proposing ideas because of the way that my mind thinks. So I'm like, I'm basically skipping all of the what I think are obvious things. That is literally the shelters and missions in my area. Gender segregation doesn't prevent sexual assault. Nothing prevents anything. We can only mitigate it. Out of 400 homeless people I saw, maybe 5 had jobs. I don't know the reasons, but I watched them sit around yapping all day. Where agency is better than enslavement, yeah, that's a toughie. A hotel is an address, so no, technically homeless. Not technically homeless. If we were to build a structure that would qualify as an address with a communal phone line and 1 balanced meal per day, then several currently homeless people can find work. All the individual would get in terms of room is a place and for a bed, and a toilet available for use, but showering is in communal showers, segregated by gender, minimal oversight, but security is there to respond to any violence or help with medical emergency. Word mitigate means. Talk suggested only giving them 1 rice meal a day. Just rice. And explicitly refused beans. The bare minimum while you are going through hell. All I'm saying is beans are expensive compared to rice, and if you're gonna die of malnutrition, you might as well have rice. Like, the homeless shelters I'm aware of are large communal sleeping area with cots. People lose their shoes, etc. I packed dry pinto beans for the food bank. I've seen bunks too, Sean. You will still die with rice. So then we put them to work. We put them to work. Then you can get beans. If you put in half an hour of work a day, you get beans. Work can be as simple as keep your room clean. So you're reinventing Victorian workhouses. I don't know, it's up for... like, all of this is up in the air for what it is. I'm just trying to say, people don't want to spend their fucking money on this, so how do we minimize it so we can convince people to spend their money on it? That's all I'm saying. I'm unaware of any other type of shelter personally, and as with such with shelter... having that image in my head, I'd rather sleep under a tree. Exactly, Sean. So we're trying to reimagine what people believe to be a shelter. And all I'm saying is, if this is better than what their life currently is, then how can anyone go against it? We get rich and help them and tell everyone else to go to hell. The one in which my chat regularly was staying had 2-person rooms. All I know is that, like, whatever services we currently have is not enough, and we need more services, but people aren't willing to pay for more services, so we need to make sure that those services we create are the absolute minimum cost. Gas isn't as big a deal as dying slowly of malnutrition from a concoction that severely harmed the Japanese military until they solved why people were getting it. I'm guessing that in terms of the country, that is not the standard. How does a tree compare to a 1 by 1 meter box? I mean, in the middle of winter, you may not have any heating, but at least there's no wind. My point is giving homeless, down and out people good food. Fuck the rice and beans. We are saying that isn't the bare minimum standard beans and rice is. Box is better than tree, but tree is better than a communal sleeping room. Yes, exactly, Sean. That's why it's a 1 by 1 box. It's your box. No one else can fuck with you in your box. Also, government cheese. We have too much government cheese. See, you can bring the extra food and the extra money into it and say, sure, rice isn't enough. Okay, rice isn't enough, guys, but I think everyone should be allotted a 1 by 1 room and 1 food a day. One food and one by one room. What if I want to fuck? Cisco Panch. If you want to fuck, there's a designated area where you can go fuck. But you're pretty much guaranteed to get an STD. From the inside, Angsthace. You can lock your room from the inside. With the old-fashioned fucking thing like this. Also, do you have any idea how small 1x1 is? Yes, it's barely enough to curl up in. And the whole point of it, Angsthace, is to be as cruel and unusual as possible so that the homeless... Yes, I know, Samar. But, like, I guess you guys aren't understanding the tactic that is behind this. The tactic that's behind this is to tell people, hey, you can't sleep on the street, go to the 1x1 room. And they're like, I don't like the 1x1 room. And they're like, here's a job application, go sweep. And then the people that really can't work, really can't do anything, those are the people that are going to be in a shelter. Those are the people that are going to be at a higher demand of care. Why would you do that to the people who need the bed the most? Because we have to separate this. Hold on. This is to separate. No. This isn't even an Alberta statement. This is, it's just tonight. A random thing. You could go sweep the... We'll create jobs to sweep the streets. Boom, there we go. We have... You living in this house, you get this free job. Why not go to the Japanese hotel route? They have beds like shelves, like 50 people sleep in a space for a normal room, but each one is so isolated, nobody can mess with them. So you do identify as a conservative, do not imagine yourself to be human. I don't consider myself connected to any political party. I just believe we should do what's best in the long run for humans. So, what about a nice home? Hey, the whole point of this is to incentivize not being fucking lazy and a drain on society. If you actually need help, this is 150% Reform Party. What's this inhumane housing? See, what I don't understand is we already have standards for the minimum that isn't literally torture. And what I'm saying, Samar, is because the standard is so high, it doesn't fit enough people. So I'm suggesting lower the standard so we can fit everyone under the umbrella. And then using that, we can separate the people that are just taking advantage of the system and the people that actually need help. And then the people that actually need help, we help. People that are taking advantage of the system, well, they can live in a 1x1 box with 1 rice a day. Then why aren't... That's what I'm saying, is like then you can't, because the conditions are there that make it so people don't want to. So you have an issue. So all I'm saying is we have an issue, how do we solve the issue? This is how we solve the issue, and this is how we incentivize it. So then the reform should be in a different direction. Like, you guys are talking about things that are way above UBI, right? Beans are cheaper because it lasts longer in the body, by the way. I had no idea, Sean. We know where the floor is. We're the people he's proposing to torture. I don't understand. No one is forcing you to go to this room. It's just if you are so desperate and so down on your luck, you have somewhere to go. Whereas nowadays, the places are so bad, people don't want to go to shelters. That's what we're trying to say, is the shelters that we currently have are so bad, people don't want to go there because of what they are. I'm suggesting, let's create a place where people do want to go. So you're proposing something worse. Okay, I don't understand your guys' argument. Okay, well, let's break this down to an argument. The first argument is the reason that people don't go to shelters is the communal living. Can we agree on that? That's one of the defining factors for reasons for people not going to shelters. Because first we have to identify, why do people not go to shelters? Okay, well, why do people not go to shelters? That's the first thing we need to identify. Why do people not go to shelters? I rented a dining room blocked off with makeshift curtains for nearly 10 years. Drug users are mentally ill. That's fucked up. That sucks, Samar. I empathize, but they have no agency, feel unsafe, and are afraid people are spying on them. Okay, so Samar, how do we give people agency? Let's start with agency. How do we give people agency? The person making this argument is a drug user. Fair enough. The reasons are varied, and pretending otherwise is a lie. Okay, but let's see what are the most significant factors. Because the image people have for movies are the old communal sleeping areas, filled with thieves and drug users, so we don't want to go to places like that. Doesn't matter if that image is wrong, it's the image we have. Oh, that was one of the best housing situations I had I had been into that point. Okay. That is how it is. I mean, that's how the world is. Unfortunately true. Good people there. Okay. So again, I'm still wrapped up on the concept that my imagined safe house for people is mental illness is literally always the answer. People who actually need communal homes aren't allowed to live there because they're deemed dangerous. But yeah, I still had more space than 1 by 1 meter. What Beezus said. True Beezus. Okay. Beezus, maybe you can get on board with this. So, the basis of this is your imagining safe house is radically unsafe. I missed your point, honestly. What's this about? Building better homeless shelters? Yes, Beezus, but they're not homeless shelters. They're basically self-prisons. And the point of it is, you can't have the homeless people on the street. That's the problem we're solving. You can't... no, it's about building worse homeless shelters. They're not homeless shelters, they're like prisons. They're like prisons. They're to encourage people to move on. We're not removing anything from the system. We're just saying, you can't live on the street. He wants to make potentially permanent habitation for people that is 1 by 1 with only rice to eat. I have miserably to motivate the homeless. To separate the ones, we treat prisoners better than that. That's the scary part about it, Samar. We shouldn't. We shouldn't. Absolutely should not. But that's a different story. We're trying to solve one issue here. The homeless people cannot be on the street. How do we solve that issue? Your way of solving that is saying let them be on the street. I'm saying, in this hypothetical, truly, prison should be nearly a hellscape. It's a nature. We should. It reduces recidivism to treat prisoners like humans. Yes, they demonstrably can be on the street. No. In this imagined reality that I'm creating, this is where I think you guys are not getting the picture. In this imagined reality that I'm talking about, you cannot be on the street. Period. If you are on the street, this is the problem, right? We can't take people off the street because there's nowhere for them to go. You said nobody would make them go there. Nothing is being taken away. You literally said that. Yes. But, hold on. Reforming prisoners and rehabilitation of them is more effective than retributive justice. We're not saying... We're just saying, you know, don't treat them the way that we do. Lower the quality by like 75%. Something like that. Right? The fact that homeless people want to go to prison because they're treated better says something about it, right? All I'm saying is you can't have homeless camps and you can't have people on the street. How do you solve that? Legally, they can't be on the street. Rather than take them on to an actual prison, put them in this sort of structure. It's a roof and one meal for free, legal, but not an actual prison. They can come and go. Less profitable, though, Samar. Americans and conservatives will never go for it. That's why it's not something that will ever happen, but I'm trying to... What I like to do is take an experimental reality and try to construct how do we make that a reality. What are the steps that we have to take? This is all hypothetical. That's the reason why it's like I feel like you guys are having an emotional reaction to it. And I think this should be more of a logical discussion about the direction that we should go with it. Does that make sense? Except you aren't doing that because you're trying to address it in isolation. Just like I don't believe cancer will be cured because treating it is more profitable. Exactly, Sean. I agree on that. I agree on that 100%. I think there's a lot of diseases that we've probably already cured 100 times over, but they're like, nah, man, we can make more money with doing a simpler way. We'll do vaccines, not immunities, right? So what I'm saying is you can't have people on the street. Why don't we just give everyone a living wage and then find them normal tiny homes or studio apartments and free basic food and water? I would love for that, Samar, but the problem is that's not viable. Then they can contribute to the economy. Vaccine is immunity if it's a real vaccine. Control-Alt-Dyslexic! Hello! Welcome! How's it going? We are having a, intense, logical, theological, / political discussion about getting homeless people off of the street. I was doing this because I was talking about the COVID vaccine. A vaccine is an immunity, except cases of vaccine failure, of course. Exactly. I was... quotation marks. I was referring to COVID. It should have never been called a vaccine. COVID is also not one thing. Yes, but if COVID's not one thing, why did the government label it the COVID-19 virus or vaccine? You see where I'm going with this? Like this is like the nuance of terminology here. It is just viruses are complex and change regularly. So in short, it wants there to be some structure in which homeless people can get a free room, one balanced meal per day, a communal landline for work contracts, but no frills. Exactly, Sean. Exactly. Because they cannot be on the street and they can't be making homeless fucking camps. I said rice. Yes, I did, Samar. And I feel like you've used that as your only argument. Whereas, like, I've multiple times said, yeah, sure, I can concede rice. Why? Because it makes rich people uncomfortable. What makes rich people uncomfortable, Angstace? COVID-19 is the 19th strain of the COVID virus. It's one of the only 3 that affects humans, and it's the least dangerous of the lot. Sounds about right, Sean. But if you're gonna have a virus and a vaccine for it, you have to call the next virus something fucking different. And booster shot just doesn't do it, you know? It's a communication thing. It's very important the way that you communicate. People leaving in tent encampments on public land. No, Angstace, because it's... If we're living in a reasonable society, that should never be the outcome of society. That is wrong. It is the novel coronavirus that was discovered in 2019. How motivational is getting the shittiest food and housing while you're poor, afraid and alone? I hate the world. Blessed. I guess I'm just... I guess... You know... I'll just never understand. Right? I mean... All I can think of is... Would you like to be in the... Would you like to be in the wind or not in the wind? And my answer would be, I wouldn't want to be in the wind. So, like, let's go back to the basis of the conversation and say, you know, we just can't have people living on the street. Because that is a bad sign for the direction that your society is going in. So, right, we want to right the direction of society. And the first thing to do when trying to right the direction of the society is you start with the bottom of society, right? Which it would be the homeless, jobless, people that are dying on the street. I'm saying we can easily afford to do better than your suggestion. We 100% can, Samar. You can only address a homeless population by addressing the mental populations and rampant drug use. Sorry about that. I couldn't remember SARS and MERS, but those were the 2 strains that are worse than COVID. A home does nothing to fix things. True, Beezus. But I'm not advocating for fixing their lives. I'm just advocating for getting them off of the street. And giving them a place to go. That's all I'm saying, is you can't be on the street. Here's a place to go. A home is a foundation for fixing things. But the whole point is that these people can't... I live in a town with a rampant population of homeless people, and I honestly rarely even notice them. I mean, I lived in Vancouver, because this is pretty much the same. People have a problem with them, usually view them through a media scope. Safety, predictability, source of pride, and identity. Okay. I can see that. So, what I'm getting out of this, I'm doing the final equation here. SARS and MERS were more lethal, but less contagious, making COVID like bees among snakes. More people die from bees' stings each year than all the other venomous creatures. True, Samar. But let's take a step back. Let's do the calculations, and let's do the final convergence of this. So, from your guys' perspective, because bees are more rampant, exactly. It's a more common thing, so it's more frequent. So let's go on to this with the angle of what you're suggesting. So what I'm suggesting is having a place to go that's outside of the wind. I'm just gonna bring this up so we kind of have like a thing here. So if we have so Scott's Point. equals, I think, now this has to be important, I think having a 1x1 room is better than being in the wind. Chat's point. Even if it's better, people won't go. So my thing is, Angstace, if they're dropping tents, why can't we build a building? So then so then it's like, if homeless put down a tent, why can't we build a building? If the homeless want to be in the tent, why can't we make the building feel like the tent? Ultimate goal equals make the building feel like their tent. Does that make sense? Ton of them willingly choose to go to the streets over at home. What do you do about those people? Why don't you want the tents there? It makes no sense. Angstace, because most of the time, the places where those tents are, many of them literally fear the government. Many of those tents are in public places. So then this is now I'm not saying you guys are saying this. You're not saying this. Right? Should we not then have designated places where they can put tents? Because, Angstace, I'm looking at this from the perspective. This is where we're not on the same page. That's what this first point is. Sorry, that's what this first point is. That's why I wrote it down. So, I think having a 1x1 room is better than being in the wind. Or let's say better than being in the tent. Right? That's my perspective. You're not staying on one page. We did, then the city council kicked everyone out of the washes and gave them nowhere else to go. Keep the tents and make a campground. There you go. Something like that. So, like, all I'm saying is, my point is, I think having a 1x1 room is better than being in a tent. And then your guys' chat says, having a tent is better than a 1x1 building. Okay, so this is our problem right here. We're not on the same page with how we think about it. Blessed, it's just the way that... It's just the... Excuse me. Blessed. It's just the way that Angstace talks. Don't get offended by it. Blessed, don't get offended by it. I am completely understanding and open to it because I'm coming at this from a completely logical point, whereas you guys are coming at it with a completely emotional point. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I want you to understand there is nothing wrong with that. And I know that you guys feel that you're also being demeaned by me. And that's why I'm trying to say that's not at all what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to get us to both understand where we're both coming from, right? Okay, so then to that I say, if you're not coming at it from an emotional perspective, then we have to drop the fact, I'm not coming from an emotion, I am coming from what is proven to work. I think you're trying to take the morality out of a moral dilemma slightly. Beezus, you are absolutely correct. You are 100% correct, and that is what I am trying to say, is in this case, in this hypothetical, we have to kind of throw morality out the door. Like, this is the reasoning behind it. If you remove your morals from it, then you lose the nuance and you need to have a proper conversation. My issue is your idea is unethical and ineffective. And what I'm saying, Samar, is put your proposal on a page. You are changing your values for what I'm saying is. That's what I did, Angsthace. The only basic statement, all of this entire conversation comes from this simple statement. Now, you guys say that I'm wrong. Correct? Okay. So, then my question becomes, if this is true, we are humans. We have emotions and morals that we will inevitably follow regardless of efficiency. Speaking only for myself. Right. Now support the claim that a 1 meter unheated room is worse than a tent. If the only way I can do that, Angsthace, is to say that, okay, I can agree. I'm just coming from my personal experience. A modest proposal was horrifying but logical. That's why we're trying to find, like, a middle ground here, right? Are we putting them in this for their benefit or society's? Beezus, we are putting them in there for society's benefit. But that is not the reason. The reason is we want to swap the direction of society. So let's go down to another, then that's where I disagree with you. Okay. So I'll put down 3 points so we can stick to those, right? So the first point is, that's one of the places he keeps, vacillating. Okay, so if there are homeless people in a society, it is bad for the society. Okay. So we're just gonna break this down logically, right? Is that true? If there are homeless people in a society, it's bad for the society. Like, it's worse than not having homeless people. That's what I'm trying to say, right? So we need to work for their benefit as well. Okay, exactly, Samar. So what's the next step if this is true? What's the next step that we take? 1 meter room is hard to destroy by nature. It is also hard to break into by humans. So from that perspective, it's better. However, a tent can be easily moved to different locations where living is potentially easier. So then the tent is better. I agree, Sean. And maybe having designated places with tents is better than buildings. I'm completely open to any idea, but I want to, at the end of the day, solve the problem. The goal is to solve the problem of homelessness. It's not how we get there or how we do it. It's can we solve it. Tent is also large enough to lie down. Okay, exactly. So let's go with that. But that's way beyond what we're doing now. No. If we have homeless people who don't want to live on the street, then society is broken and needs repair, not the homeless people. Okay, so there. So Samar, the first thing we need to do is fix society. Okay, what's the first step to fixing society in this case? We know what we need to do, let's do it, right? I think the room size is too small. Okay, perfect example, Sean. Now, I think it's both. We need better access to mental health care and drug abuse help. Those are the first steps. Okay, so we solve mental health care and we're just going to do the mental health care first. So we solve mental health care. Now you're not going to agree with me, but this is going to be a solution. Make sure everyone has food, clothing. Okay, well, hold on. We got to do one thing at a time, Samar. We got to do one thing at a time because we got to progress. If you try to do too many things at once, you're not going to get a good foundation, right? So we solve mental health care. How do we solve mental health care? We have to do some drastic measures. Have people take mandatory mental health tests every year. I mean, that is a solution, Angstface, but do we want to do that? That's the biggest question is the solution actually viable? So when we look at a solution, we say, is this viable to do? A room with a bed and half bath attached. Of course not. Put everyone in therapy and if needed, medicate them. Okay, so every year, every person in this society has to take a mental health test. And that way we can, this is so everyone gets the help they need. Does that make sense? That's not all what I'm saying. I'm saying give them access to actually seeing psychologists because they're currently almost always turned away. Okay, so the first thing we did is we solved mental health. How did we do that? We gave them the care they needed. So what's the next step to trying to fix homelessness if we've solved the mental health crisis? You are going to register everyone who has mental health problems like a certain health secretary. You underestimate the difficulty of treating certain mental illnesses. Angstface, that's why when people have certain mental illnesses, this is what you guys aren't gonna like. They go in the padded box. You keep on with, and this is to separate the problematic 5%. So, like I said, you guys aren't gonna like the solution, but I'd love mandatory psych evaluation for every person in the country so their mental health can be monitored and if needed, medicated. Problem is, sometimes the diagnosis is fake because the government will take advantage of that system to control people more. Yeah, I'm going with euthanasia over enslavement, actually. This isn't the solution, they just drug people. That'll be the solution once the robots take over and enslave us. But we're trying to talk, okay, I guess the question here is, how much ground are you guys willing to concede in order to make the world better? Because I'm willing to concede 99% of what I believe to make the world a better place. We can't just reopen the asylums without fixing them first. Okay, so we fixed the asylums. Okay, we fixed the asylums, now we reopen the asylums. Boom, what's next? Solution we can come up with aren't ethical, and nothing ethical can solve the problem. I will not give ground on people suffering. You can't say you're being coldly logic if No, I said angst-based euthanasia is on the table. It's just the likelihood of it is extremely low. Nothing is off the table. It's just the percentage of it on a scale is what are the highest percentage versus the lowest percentage. Euthanasia is definitely the lowest percentage, right? So it's like the question of... I love what you said, Beezus. See, I guess the problem here is... Should I say this? In a world full of empathy, the innocent become victims. If we're going totally cruel and self-serving, we could bring back lobotomies and electric shock therapies. See, okay. One sees it as a needed part of society, and the other sees it as an obstacle. Problem is largely inequity. Homeless people are victims. Maybe we study people who went through hell, such as survivors of Auschwitz. See, what I think is very far more than they victimize people. Okay. See, now this is the reason why I would say... Now, this is just what I think. This is the reason why I think that it's coming... You guys are coming at it from an extremely emotional direction. Because... Now, I could be wrong, but from my perspective... Me putting... the idea of... having a designated place for these people is worse than euthanasia. Because at the end of the day, all that I want is a recognized place for these people to go. Can we agree on that? That we want a recognized place for these people to go? Even the worst homeless people are the victim of society failing the most vulnerable. You want to clean up the streets so you feel safer and better about society. No. I want to better society so that the streets are clean. I think that's an extremely important nuance to this. The entire idea of this conversation is to improve society. And this is why I feel that you guys have gotten into an emotional state about it, where I suggest something and then all of a sudden it's shock therapy and bringing back lobotomies. When all I simply advocate here for is a place for these people to go. Because having the bottom 5% be a threat to 95% of everyone else, I think is actually a non-ethical stance. I think you guys have a really bad ethical grounding if you think that 5% of the population should threaten 95% of the population. That's just my opinion. Does that make sense? I'm not being emotional, my man. I just have empathy and realize that shoving homeless people into a one-by-one box is cruel. I agree with you, Beezus. Shoving homeless people into a one-by-one box is cruel. Homeless that are truly victims, such as the people who lost their jobs and then had their home burnt down, the ones who lost their families when they weren't set up to support themselves, those are victims. The guy who just doesn't want to follow rules at a job and live without a social environment, but still think they deserve whatever they want, those aren't victims. I have never felt threatened by a homeless person. You are ripping off the scab instead of preventing injuries. My entire city is swarmed by homeless people, and they rarely get to the point where they're anything more than background noise. And I think you're out of touch with reality if you think the most oppressed 5% are a threat. I believe empathy is developed through suffering, put Scotty in the box. True, Blessed. I mean, I do advocate for my own euthanasia when it comes to eugenics. So, you know, it is what it is. But, again, the whole point of this is to, like Beezus, or like Sean said, is to separate the people that actually need help and they're mentally ill, and nothing is ever going to fix them. So the 5%, the bottom 5% of the population are the truly, actually mentally ill, whether it's they were born with some sort of mental psychosis, they have, like, multiple personalities, they hallucinate. We are actually talking about the 5% of people that are in extreme danger to themselves and a danger to society. We are trying to separate those from the people who pretend to be that, and preventing the means of acquiring that through drug use. Does that make sense? People who are a danger to society are already dealt with. PTSD from military service is in that metric. True, Sean. And Beezus, what I'm trying to say is I don't think that the people that are dangerous to society are already dealt with. I don't think that's true. The incurably mentally ill are offended against much more than they are offenders. You are baking an emotional appeal to fear. But we need to put on a spectrum here, Angstface. Someone who can have a psychotic episode and think that demons are attacking them, and will pick up a knife and start stabbing people. Like, those are the people I'm talking about, and only those kinds of people. Does that make sense? Like, the bottom 5% of the most mentally ill, like, you have the mentally ill that are dyslexic. That's a mental illness. Then you have people that are mentally ill that don't understand that they even exist. Does that make sense? So, what I'm trying to do is separate that. There's already programs in place to deal with them. It would if that were what you were actually saying. Upra, welcome, or Upri, welcome. True, big brain. So what you guys are saying is that the problem is already solved. Whether you think they're successful is a different story. Okay, so what I'm getting out of this is that 5% is... Oh, no, Angstface, the 5% of the bottom-most mentally ill. The bottom 5% of the most absolutely insane fucking psychopaths in the world. Like, you look at the people that are mentally ill, you say the top 99% or 95% of these people probably aren't a danger to themselves or society. The bottom 5% are. And then you say, okay, we have to put those people in a place where they're not a danger to society. And you guys are saying we already do that. So all I'm saying is that weeding out and finding those people, that's very emotionally loaded language for someone who says we're being emotional. 5% is a number pulled out Scotty backside, by the way. Yeah, it's just a representation of a like the worst of the worst. Like, this is where I'm like, okay, how is it emotionally loaded? Because maybe I'm just extremely biased. I don't know. That's where I'm trying to, like, find this this like in between, like unbalanceable scale in the middle. Does that make sense? Like, if these systems are already in place and they're already doing what they should be doing, then why are you guys fighting against me? That's what's confusing to me. I'm like, wait, so all of this already exists, so why are you... I still don't understand. I like the fantasy of your idea, but the reality wouldn't look like your fantasy. Well, that's why we're talking about a fantasy, Sean. Maybe my sleepy time tea with honey. Ooh, nice, blessed. But does that make sense? Like, what I don't understand is the ultimate goal of this conversation should be to find a way that homelessness is just not a part of our society. Right? My phone died, I had 1% charge, and now it's 2 a.m. I need to sleep soon. I'm gonna get more froffles and sausage. Alright, sounds good. Alright, Samar, no worries, and please, no hard feelings about anything. This is just like a discussion about this, right? And it's like a proposition towards the lowest, like, means, you know, is like, you know, that's all I'm trying to do. Yeah, so I'm you know, and I love these types of conversations because it's really hard to talk about people with this, right? The world is imperfect. Implementing this is imperfect, but perfect implementation of your proposal would do more harm than the current imperfect implementation. Okay, Anxe, so then what I'm advocating for is finding the middle ground between those two different talking points. I'm fine with dealing with people that are a danger to society. I'm not fine with saying that homeless people need to be dealt with as a whole. Okay, Beezus. I don't think it's I think it's the angle that we're coming at this from. The angle we're coming at this from is, how do we improve society so there is no homeless people? And the only homeless people that there would be in that society would be the most dangerous bottom 5% of society. Eliminate the most bottom 5% of society and find a way to do it. That's what we should do. Because you're never gonna get that bottom 5%. So you have to eliminate them from society. I don't think it's anywhere near 5% dangerous people. No. Samar. This is all of the dangerous people in the world. Like, this is the guy that will push you if you argue with him. He might even punch you. Right? This guy, you look at him wrong, he'll stab your fucking eyes out, cut your heart out, scalp you, and send it to your mom. Like, do you understand? Like, this is the scale that I'm talking about. There's normal people are up here. These are people that can be violent. These are the people that will fucking are absolutely psycho. No. I'm not talking about 5% of society. I'm talking about 5% of the most dangerous people. So if this is the most dangerous people in the world, we take the 5 most fucking dangerous percent of that and remove that. So like you keep nipping the bottom off of it. You just keep cutting that 5% off of the bottom. Does that make sense? And the other thing is, like, I'm not advocating for, I don't know. I just think you guys are taking it to such an extreme level when I say 1 rice, 1 by 1 room. Extrapolate from that whatever you want, that's what they need, right? Whatever form it takes, they need place to be, legal place to be, and food. That, for everyone. That's the main picture, right? There's one program that does that you want to do. So we lock up the ones in all of society, not just among the homeless. Yup, each province has a similar program. We were talking about you are saying what you were saying at face value. One rice, one room is extreme, dude. Yes, and then I said I said, okay, well, what's the middle ground? Between and the whole point of one room, one by one room and one rice is when you separate the people that aren't willing to work, you're giving them the incentive. No, you rejected even adding beans. I said you had to work for beans. If you want beans, you gotta work half an hour a day. I said if you want beans, you gotta work half an hour a day. That's how you get beans. Clean your place up. I'll give some leeway. You say we exaggerating one by one room blocks. I do not agree with locking them up until they get jobs. This isn't how we run modern society. Serial killers aren't usually homeless. I mean, fair enough, right? But the entire point of it was to separate the people that actually need help from the people that don't need help. And the people that don't need help, their incentive to go out and be a part of society is the one by one room and one rice. Society without morals is called a dystopia. Samar with the obscure facts. Increasing inequity doesn't make things better. Okay, so then how do we make things better? Right? And it's like, I'm trying to steer this conversation into how do we make things better. The guy who did a mass shooting here lived near my boss, a pretty nice house. Well, then maybe that's why we need to do mental assessments for people to figure that kind of stuff out, right? That goes along with the other thing, right? But it's still like, have you considered decreasing inequity? Did he say why? I mean, so, okay. So, again, final equation here comes down to, I'm saying let's find a way to eliminate homelessness by bettering society, and every single one of your guys' answers is, it's not possible. Is that right? I just want to be on the same page with this. Why he did the shooting, he was mentally unstable and thought the congresswoman was out to get him. Yeah, he probably should have had a psych evaluation. No, we were saying your method won't work. But I never suggested a method, Samar. That's my problem. Is I'm saying, you guys, we need to come up with a method together. No, I don't want to lock them up and pretend they don't exist. I'm saying, okay, let's wait for ads. That's it. Not some campground tent. Just some designated area where they can pitch their tent, where they can go. We can decide upon that, but we need to decide on a foundation first. And the foundation is there needs to be a legal place where these people can go. Period. That's the beginning and middle of the conversation. We need to figure out how to legally have a place for these people to go. That's it. I'm not advocating for a support system. I'm advocating for a place to go. A place for them to be. This is where I say it's bad. You can say it's homeless camps, but there are already homeless camps. So what's the difference between us saying, okay, these are designated places that homeless people can set up camps, and the places that homeless people have already set up camps? What you're advocating makes society worse. It is NGOs such as the Y Foundation that provide housing for people in need. They take care of the construction themselves, buy flats on the private housing market, and renovate existing flats. The apartments have 1 or 2 rooms. In addition to that, 4 emergency shelters have been converted into apartments in order to offer long-term housing. Those are the people that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the homeless camps of tents. That's the problem I'm trying to solve. If they already have places that they go that are public places, like public parks, that are already campgrounds, and they turn them into their own little communities where they should be publicly accessible areas, I think that's a problem. Do you not agree? And I said we have programs in our community that give them dorm-like studio apartments or shared spaces with a couple dorms. You haven't proved that the tents are a problem. But that's the foundation of the conversation, Angsthace. You've repeatedly opined that the tents are a problem. Yes! But it's not the tents, it's the fact that they're on public property. Does that make sense? My church wanted to buy a property for homeless, were to be allowed to set up their tents, also to have a community garden. They were told by the government they weren't allowed to offer that. I believe that, Sean. I truly believe that. So, become mentally competent to stand trial. I mean, that's fair. So if the tent camps are there, and they're on public property, and they're obscuring... The Finnish model seems effective. Why don't we do what has evidence of working instead? I think he was sent to a mental health place for his sentence. Okay, Angsthace, then what did they do in Finland? Yeah, what did the Finnish do to solve the problem? Because my problem is that we don't have a solution. And whether you think that Finland ends homelessness and provides shelter for all in need. Okay, Angsthace, that's what I'm advocating for. Something that fixes the problem. So, first of all, the question is, number of homeless people have fallen sharply. The reason the country applies the housing first concept. Those affected by homelessness receive a small apartment. That's what I was advocating for. Okay, so I was advocating for this, so I agree with them. Counseling. I agree with them. If, Samar, if you don't think an apartment is a cell, I'm sorry, man. And like I said, the 1x1 was an exaggeration. Like, it's whatever size you fucking need it to be, but it's like, you're still getting, like, a little tiny room. So it doesn't matter what it is. The government is... I don't think a cell is an apartment. Okay, so... by your definition, whatever apartment is, homeless people will be willing to go there. So whatever that is, we give them an apartment. You double, triple, and quadruple down on the 1 meter cube. Yes. Because that was for one specific reason. I wasn't here for that part, I think. Beezus, but I said the reason that I advocate for the 1x1 space is... Send me this video to edit, JK. True, blessed, let's go viral. No. Because I advocate for the... This is the reason why I advocate for the 1x1 room. After you separate the people in society that need help, so you give the people... I was giving you the benefit of the doubt and assuming it was tall enough to stand in. Well, it would be like, 2 meters tall, maybe 3 meters tall, right? It would be tall enough to stand in. But Samar, the whole point of the 1x1 room was for the people that are lazy pieces of shit that can do stuff but don't want to. If they want to be a part of society, 1x1 by 2 meter box. Whatever. But the whole point is that it's small, it's cramped, they don't have anything in there, and if they want a better life, they better go out and fucking work for it. But the people that actually need help, right? They're the ones that we provide help for. But the people that are lazying around, that are just abusing the system and being like leeches on society, I say put them in the 1x1 box. That's why I wanted the 1x1 box. Without that, there's no need for the 1x1 box. Does that make sense? Still say it's more humane to euthanize before coffining. And like I said, they don't have to go there. It's just like, if they're so bad off that a 1x1 box is better than being outside, at least it's better than being outside. That was my argument. Anything above that was okay, but the problem is we're trying to make it as cheap as possible so that people will buy into it. Right? From there we can change the nature of whatever the apartment or whatever the food is that's given to the person. This violates literal animal rights laws, and you want to do this to humans. I want to provide humans fuck cheap as possible. I'm so sick of that mentality. Again, you said they don't have to go there. We also said they can't be outside. Yeah, so eggs, they have to find a better... They have to go work for an hour and go to one of the freaking other shelters. The whole point is if, like... It's... If you think it's so comfortable living on the street and you have absolutely no problems... We don't want you living on the street because you think it's comfortable to live on the street. Does that make sense? Like, I don't want to live in a society where it's like, oh, people just live on the street because it's comfortable. Does that make sense? Like, I don't imagine that in my head as being a very positive society. I'm pretty confused right now. Okay. So I will reiterate this then. It isn't comfortable. It is less threatening. Muffin, thank you for the raid!
2 viewers. Welcome, raiders.
So, the difference there, Samar, is being threatened versus feeling comfortable. More profitable than tent encampments, then. So what... So, again, this comes down to the fact that the only concept we're combating on is if they're forced into this house and off the streets. If you say you're not forcing them, then I wouldn't care. Okay, but here's the nuance, Beezus. They're already living in tent camps. If homeless people are already living in tent camps, why don't we set aside land for them to build their tents on, instead of them going to public places that take up public space? Does that make sense, Beezus? And welcome. Thank you for the raid, Muffin. How was the stream? We're in a very heavy debate right now. Would you like to join us? Muffin of Cuteness has arrived. Today I went back to boxing. Nice, Blessed. Hell yeah. But yeah, one of the main things is, Beezus, if they're already building their own homeless encampments in public areas, can we as a society facilitate a place for them to go? That's all I am advocating for. I was only in a hotel because a friend paid for it, and I was homeless because my dad kicked me out because I wasn't working hard enough because my mom had died recently and I was super depressed and needed mental health care, not losing anyone. Public places with access to public services and public transit. I can't imagine why people would want to be there. It amped up my aggression, though, getting ice. I snapped the tray in two. That is how homelessness happens. For normal people, Samar, but not, like, mentally ill, like, actual... Yeah, see, that's a circumstance of life, not a brain malfunction. Does that make sense? So, Samar, you're... Like, I wish we had public transit more accessible where I live. Takes way too long to get anywhere. Beezus, we don't have public transit. There isn't even a bus in our like, fucking village that was mental illness, literally. No, I'm talking about scale. If you have to take a break off of work because of a parent dying, that's not mental illness. That's your parent died and you're going through shit. I don't, like, to me the problem is, if your parent died and you're saying you have a mental illness because you're depressed because your parent died, I think you're fucking retarded and you don't have a mental illness. Your parent died. Damn fucking right you should be goddamn depressed, broken, and fucking destroyed. That's not a mental illness. That's a fucking shitty situation that you have to deal with because of life. That's not... There is a wiring difference in your brain, the way that your brain functions to the point that you can't function as a human being. I think the definition of mental illness has just gotten way too wide to the point of including someone that has sad feelings. That's not mental illness, having sad feelings. No. See, this is what I'm saying, Angstace, is I think society has put these things under the branch of mental illness. So I'm saying I don't believe they should be under the category of mental illness, despite the fact that society has put them under that. What do you think PTSD is? Beezus, I don't think PTSD is like an actual mental illness. I think it's the difference between something that's acquired and something that you're born with. Does that make sense? To me, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Honestly, because of how I've been treated, I've lost a lot of family, making myself as tough as possible. Dropped out of college due to depression and panic attacks. No, none at all. And it's like, words mean things. PTSD is an illness. There are those who can handle trauma and those who can't. Sean, but what I'm trying to say is I think there should be a separation between born with a brain malfunction and something that is acquired through trauma in life. Is that fair to say? That they shouldn't be under the same umbrella? Why should they not, when they're diagnosed in the same place? PTSD is similar to AIDS in that respect. It is acquired, but it is an illness. Okay, I think we're getting locked down too much on words. It doesn't matter what it's called. I think there should be a separation between something that you're born with and something that you acquire. Can I present that as a fair thing? Do you think that's not a fair, like, separation of category? Like, the treatment for something that you're born with versus something that you've acquired seems like it should be a bit different. Why should they be separated? Tell me what benefit would come from this. Words are literally the only tools we have for this conversation. True, Anxace. Look into neuroplasticity and brain foods. That seems more like unneeded semantics. We could talk in binary. They are treated in the same ways. Welcome, no sorry Superman, not sorry Superman. Okay, so the point here then is, how do you say this? Like, I just want to know if you're fine with allowing the term, them to live on the streets in your perfect world. This is like saying that type 1 diabetes and type 2 are totally unrelated when they often medications are used. Clinical depression is different from situational depression too. You can be depressed based on a situation, such as the loss of family members or the difficulty of finding meaningful employment. That is standard depression. Well, clinical depression doesn't need a trigger. Everything can be objectively perfect and still be depressed. Why does it matter whether you were born with one leg or had a leg amputated later in life? Your bicycle needs the same adaptations. My thing would be, bronchitis and asthma both need a rescue inhaler. Okay, so my thought process on this is, one is a structural problem with your brain. Your neurons don't fire in the right way. There's a chemical that's not right in your brain that causes an imbalance. And that is your natural state of being, right? Why do you want to demonize people who lost the genetic lottery? I'm getting into this convo. Do you keep the leg like the Lucky Rabbit's foot? Turns don't work right in several ways. Forgive my weirdness. That's okay, Blessed. So, Post-birth mental damage is no different than pre-birth mental damage, so why separate them in the dictionary? Okay. As was said earlier, living brains change. Okay. Okay. See, I guess I'm just not expressing it to an extreme enough. Maybe that's where I'm like losing you guys. I don't know. But at this point, it's like being depressed and having something mentally wrong with your brain, as in changes brains in ways that show up on fMRI. I need medication to make it work and therapy. I have a major depressive disorder and generalized anxiety disorder and panic disorder. I'm literally trying so much. Well, I would say that the PTSD is a pre-birth illness that isn't noticed until the trigger event happens because others go through the same situation not being affected as PTSD patients are. PTSD changes the brain chemicals. I have CPTSD. Okay. Okay. So, I guess then the scale? I probably have CPTSD when my clinic is too low cost to handle. I like type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes. Complex.
700 septillion.
Hey, Smokey, how's it going, buddy? Welcome to the conversation. So, if... Okay. Let's do the final equation here, then. Genetic predisposition, etc. It is many smaller repeated traumas, not one huge one. Okay. So, let's say I'm a Zoloft and Ziricol. I'm basically on my own. Technically, it's not the DSM as its own thing. Lexapro and Wellbutrin and Zeratrodone. See, you guys aren't gonna like this, but I'm just gonna say it. Humans survived for thousands of years without prescription drugs. So my problem is that people are turning to pharmaceutical drugs instead of other types of meditative internal therapies that have been proven to work. Does that make sense? Is that a better standing to go for? I have no proof of my stance on the PTSD, but it does seem to add up. My wife is on 3 mental meds, Zoloft being one. Some humans survived to look at historical life expectancies. Most humans died in infancy and childhood for thousands of years without meds. But what I'm saying is if... How do I say this? Like the subtext... Hold on, in childbirth... Exactly, but what I'm saying, Samar, is if... Okay, hold on. Let's take a step back. The subtext for this is if people nowadays still have those problems, that means that the people in the past that genetically have had those problems have survived and bred up until this point, in order for those genes to be like a continued part of human existence. Does that make sense? How does it not, Angstace? Many are epigenetic. But if it was a part of, hold on, if it was a part of the human genome that was, you know, something that would basically cause itself to eliminate itself, like or random genes getting screwy randomly. So, what you're saying is that the reason for the mental illness is just an out-of-whack DNA, like, genetic structure thing. Epigenetic is other factors that turn on and off genes rather than the genes themselves. An ordering of the genes in order to create and facilitate a certain outcome of the brain. How many generations of incest happened before we understood the issue? True, Sean, that's another thing. There are literally switches. But switches Samar, this is where I don't think you understand the subtext. Switches dictate order. Do you see where, like, it's a step of progression. Without switches, you can't have an order because the order can't change. Switches make the order by changing it. Does that make sense? Epigenetics is the study of heritable changes in gene expression that occur without altering the underlying DNA sequence. Essentially, it's how our behaviors environment can influence how our genes are expressed, potentially affecting our health and development. These changes can be influenced by factors like age, diet, stress, and disease. In what universe do switches indicate order? No, the order is determined by the RNA strand used. No, I'm talking about in a system. Any system that has switches, you flip a switch and it changes the order of the system. Does that make sense? Genetic determines if you're AABB, AABB. Epigenetic determines if 1 is on, 2 is off, 1 is on, 2 is off, 1 is on, 2 is off. Between fragile brains and a messed up society, we're just boned is all true. Hey, I'm not a strong structure. A song structure. And I have no idea how specific. Well, I mean, you know, ooh, ads. Ads. Yo, Smokey, we are talking, well, we were originally talking about UBI and, homelessness. Now we're talking about mental disorders. 'Cause talking true, Smokey. Alright, we are back. Yeah, Blessed, the final effect is changed order, though. I love you all. True, love you all. No, it is gaps in the genome or added parts you don't usually use, but have the genes for.
Do not go to the bathroom. Do not move your have another toe. Do not stretch. Do not go to the bathroom.
Did you guys both do wellness check at the same time? Oh my fucking god, guys. Really? I'm enjoying this conversation. I hope you guys are enjoying this conversation. Like, I love talking about, like, these topics and stuff like that and how everything works because I'm not a fucking neuroscientist. I don't know anything. I think it's Sunday. Yes, Angsthace. We love seeing you, Toke. Well, I mean, I guess so. Yes, it's Sunday. I mean, I've just really enjoyed the conversation because normally I can't talk to people about this because I'm slightly pissed but engaged. See, like, what I don't understand, Blessed, is why would my position towards something get you upset? Like, that's just something that I can't cognitively understand. Like, I'm just presenting my basic bitch opinion. Okay, as long as it's not like my opinion that's making you get pissed, because I'm like, try not to, like, I'm not trying, like, if I'm coming off in like a dickish way, just tell me. It's not what I'm intending. I think they mostly don't like me. No, I don't think that's true, Angsthaze. I think it's just the fact that we're having an in-depth conversation like this, and you're actually like, you're putting your points in, you're putting your 2 cents in, you're actually talking back and saying, this is why I believe what I believe, and so far, you've pretty much changed my mind on everything, because you seem to have more information than I do, and you're pulling facts out. Like I said, if I don't give an example, I'm bullshitting. Call me out on it. And I only think you're fucking calling me out on it. And I love that. And then I'm trying to back up even more logic with it. And I think that's what's great about having the conversation, is that it can come across that way, definitely, but we were talking in extremes. It was a very charged conversation, so it's very understandable how that can happen. But it's you're always bullshitting. Exactly, Beezus. I hate everyone because they're all fucking bastards. I hate everyone because my brain is working faster. I hate everyone, even if I know I shouldn't hate everyone. True. See, Smokey knows what it's all about. You gotta put me in the middle of there, Smokey. Get the bukkake going. But it's really hard to have these kinds of conversation most of the time with people because they either just won't have a conversation about it. Okay, let me bring real life serious stuff here. The current U.S. Health Secretary wants to create an autism registry and eventually send people to work on organic farms against their will. CHA. See, Samar? I don't believe in doing anything against anyone's will except for breaking the law, and I think there should be a law against people setting up homeless tents. It's extremely unpopular. I will get a lot of hate for it, but I just don't think they should be able to do that. Right? You shouldn't just be able to set up a fucking tent in the middle of the fucking sidewalk or underneath a random bridge. Like, if you need to do that, there should be a system there. But I am saying, because there's no system in place to take care of it, there's nothing we can do about it. So I'm saying, let's take a stance on making a way. I'm homeless, apparently. True, Smokey. I can't look at your proposal and definitions without knowing that if you had the power to do your idea, it would do that kind of harm. I think that's just a trust issue then, Samar, in believing that you have the best interest of the majority in hand. But I am saying you have to remove that 5% that is a problem. Because if you look at the entire homeless population, 95% of them are completely fine. I can't trust dangerous people in power. And that's kind of one of the biggest problems with our society. And that's why I like having these conversations, because as a fiction writer, it allows you to imagine them in a world where you don't have that kind of thing, because you have control over the world itself. So what I try to do is I try to build this in my mind and say, what would be the perfect world in my mind? Fuck ethics, fuck morals, fuck reality. What's the theory of this perfect world? Right? The road to hell is paved with good intentions, but it still ends up in hell. Exactly, Angsthace. Best intentions lead to the worst of circumstances. I need to stand against dangerous ideas so they don't take root. You're the only one that's going to be spared the AI in the AI resin because you'll blend in with the cold logical reasoning. I mean, fair enough, Beezus. Fair enough. I mean, I think... Okay, here's what I will say. Innocence will always get fucked over. I would rather have the AI running the system, knowing that there's no corruption, in a system where I know that the AI isn't corrupted. But then people are going to say, oh, what if the AI is corrupted? And I'm like, it's a hypothetical. The AI isn't corrupted. It's a benevolent AI that does everything that works perfectly for society. Oh, but what if it doesn't? No, in this hypothetical what if it doesn't? In this hypothetical situation, it does. Period. It's a hypothetical. If you can't imagine that, I don't know what to tell you. Beezus, that's my point of view. What's the point of having homeless people in the streets if I don't like the way they smell? And also, you probably want to fix that auto-posting. If it was a benevolent AI, then none of your ideas would be used.
I will butt check you in a minute, don't ignore me.
Beezus, but my only idea is proposing that we do something in society that makes it so homeless camps aren't a thing. Do whatever we need to do to fix society to make it so we don't have homeless camps. I think that's exactly what the fucking AI would do. An AI deleted an entire working database because it panicked and went against directives to change nothing. But you guys are saying in reality I'm talking about hypothetical, right? Society betterment starts from the bottom. That's what I was talking about, Beezus. That's where this entire conversation. You probably used line breaks that get erased. Wait, wait. Huh, that's interesting, Angstace. I didn't know that. That's interesting. Well, you learn something every day. B, that's a butt check. None of those things because they're one... Apparently, I'll have to change that, Angstace. Thanks, I didn't know that. They aren't that bad. People not having what they need to survive is bad. I have no idea what the butt check is. Well, I don't know what to say other than make society, I don't know. Fix society, guys. That's what I'm advocating for. Fucking fix society. But if we can't come up with a plan, society's never gonna get fixed. What's a butt check? When you check someone with your butt, duh! You can do butt checks too, where you try to butt them in the face. Maybe the second pass with the toilet paper. Oh. Okay, I toked. Alright. Payment for admiring booties? I don't know. But I will say one of the main things is, like, you know, ultimate goal is to make society better. Yes, give me points. True, Smokey, true. So yeah, again, so it's like if we can't come up with a plan, society's never gonna get better. But there's no perfect way to do something, so we need to sacrifice ground on both sides, morally and ethically, in order to make a better society overall. Callie, Samar, 3 a.m. Wow, is Callie still here? Callie, are you still here? I know we only read half the chapter. We got really, really fucking sidetracked, guys. But I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for engaging with the conversation with me, guys. A lot of people won't engage with me with conversations. And all I want is have the conversation that leads to a solution. I go now, bye guys, fuck the streamer. True, Smokey, fuck the streamer. Streamer's a piece of shit. Fuck him. He's a fucktard retard. That's why we have this. I can't even fucking spell it because I'm retarded. Yep. Alright, have a good night. Sorry for holding you up with that conversation, though. Take care. Good night. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for the raid. I'd rather not. No offense. You're not my type. I'm glad we got some new people tonight. Well, they're not new. Anxace and Samar have been around forever. I'm also here, fucking Smokey. True, Smokey, as you said you're leaving. We just appear randomly. I mean, I pop in sometimes, right? I have my rotations that I do. I'm going to be taking 2 months off of work, so I'm going to be a lot more active in that sense, and I'll probably be streaming earlier, so I might be raiding you. Drop by tomorrow and ask me about slavery. True, I watched Django Unchained yesterday. That's a good one. Because, you know, I think people in prison should be slaves. That's my take, man. You fucking go to prison, you fucking deserve it. And I am 100% on the level of fuck the streamer. True, they already are. But I'm on like the idea of, okay, I guess this is a good way to put it. I'm an advocate for, I'm Canadian, so I'm not American, so we don't have the First Amendment when it comes to guns, but we basically do, right? It's the same kind of thing. We have gun laws, but still, basically, I am an advocate for someone being allowed to own a gun, even though there's a chance that I might be a victim of gun violence because of this. Canadians are not real. I'm pretty sure Angsthace is Canadian too, and I'm pretty sure Bookbuyer is Canadian too, right? Chast. Working for 15 cents an hour is slavery. No, working for 15 cents an hour isn't slavery because you're getting paid. Angst is a myth. Seems self-serving of the streamer to suggest it. Wait, suggest what? Gun violence? And being advocate for, like, the ownership of firearms? In Canada, it's $15.25, which is like $8. So it's like 75 cents higher than yours. I mean, I'm not at the bottom of society, but I mean, I fucking work at Walmart. So it's like, I'm not that high up. I've only ever had a minimum wage job other than when I worked at the mill when I crushed my foot. Is it It is 14 in my city. Ah, it's $20 in Cali. Damn, Beezus. That's insane. But it's so expensive in Cali. In Cali, it's so expensive that $20 is like $6. It's probably equivalently on like a scale of cost of living lower. 15 cents plus room and board, I think, is the dodge. Exactly, Yanks. There's like this tiny little loophole that they get around from calling them slaves. Because they're trying to make a living wage. True. But I'm only talking about the worst of the worst criminals, not someone who smoked weed, you know. We're talking the worst of the worst criminals. There should be an entirely different degree for that, right? Like the difference between minimum and maximum security prisons. If you're in a minimum security prison, no one really gives a fuck. If you're in a maximum security prison, yeah, you should probably be a slave. And I don't see how it's self-serving for me. What do you do at Walmart? I am a cashier. I'm a whatever front man. I do customer service. I am like this is me, guys. That face, I love it. Not just somebody who smokes weed. Well, maybe unless they share. That's why we got the sign down there that says, "I don't." You can't see. Oh, I gotta move it. Hold on. Ah, you can't freaking see it because I don't have enough room. But it says if you didn't bring, it's that green sign. It says, if you don't have marijuana, get the fuck out. Is that a flare? Is that flare on your vest? Yes, it is. That is flare. They don't have to pretend not to enslave them. The amendment that banned slavery as an exception as punishment for crime. Makes sense. I would believe that 100%. But, you know, it is a very... Alright then, I'll get out. Take care. Take care. Have a good night, guys. Thanks for the conversation. I really appreciate it.